Good afternoon, more Medic One. Today I have a HOMELITE chainsaw on the bench, and this saw is just about almost brand new. It got used once last season, and it got used for like, it looks like less than a couple of tanks of gas has run through this thing. But what's happened is the fuel has set in there over the winter and then all the way to almost this winter. And the gas in it is just stagnant. If you could smell it right now, it would make you almost gag. But anyway, what we're going to have to do is go through the carburetor on this one. The reason being is I went ahead and removed this cover, and I poured the old fuel out, and then I added new fresh fuel. I primed it, and fuel is just gurgling out of the carburetor. What we're going to do, we're going to remove the carburetor, go through it, and hopefully get this saw running again. The piston and the cylinder look fine. The compression is good. First thing I want to do though is remove the handle here to gain access to the carburetor mounting bolts. There are only a couple of screws that actually hold this handle on. There's one hidden right here, and it's a Torx. It's a what does it say here? T20. You've got one on the bottom right here, and you've got one on the handle up here. Just go ahead and remove those. Flip the saw back onto its belly, and you should be able to remove this handle without any problem. Now you will have a throttle cable to deal with, but all we're wanting to do is just get it out of the way enough to gain access to the carburetor right here. So you won't have to take any of the throttle linkage or nothing like that apart. Now you got 7/16 or 3/8 headed bolts for the carburetor. Let me grab a socket. 7/16, 3/8 they are. Alright, let's get those bolts removed, and we'll get the carburetor off of there and see how it turns out. Once you get the air filter base off, you'll see that the carburetor is pretty accessible. In order to remove the carburetor, we're going to have to remove this carburetor limiter cap block, and the only way to do that is to remove the starter. So go ahead and remove the starter. Once you get that removed, the block will just come right out. You should be able to move the carburetor back now. If it's not stuck on the mounting gasket, take your screwdriver and just pop it like that. Pay close attention on how your fuel lines are hooked up. This is your fuel pump side of the carburetor. This is your discharge side of the carburetor. You can mark the hoses if you'd like, but you can always just press the bulb and see which way the fuel flows, and then hook up your fuel lines. If you can see it on the choke, there's actually a little Carter pin right here. Let's go ahead and take you a little hook and remove the Carter pin. Slide the choke lever out of the choke rod. Easier said than done sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and remove these fuel lines from the carburetor. Don't worry about if you mess up the fuel lines. They give you plenty down in here to replace it if you need some more. I'm just going to take a pair of dikes and break it free. Hopefully they'll come off. They've been on there for a while. There it goes. Take it off there, and then one wire on the bottom. Once you get the carburetor off, let's go ahead and break this carburetor apart. We'll take the fuel pump side of it apart first. It's just one screw right on top, and we'll see just how bad this thing is. Not too bad. It's got a little trash in the screen. Let's go ahead and take the metering side of the carburetor apart. There's the problem right there, folks. I hope y'all can see that. You see that metering diaphragm? Oops, let me get in the frame there. That metering diaphragm is hard as a rock and is sunk down in there, pushing that needle open, causing this thing to flood out. I believe that a carburetor kit will fix it, and we'll get the kit put in, and we'll see how it turns out. Once you got the carburetor disassembled, just keep all your parts together. I'm going to lay this out here. Fuel pump cover, metering diaphragm cover. I like to keep all my screws and nuts and bolts in a little magnetic tray like that there. This carburetor is a Walboro. It's a WT673. This particular carburetor takes a what we call a K20 watt. It is a very common Walboro carburetor kit. I got this today, and it'll look something like this. K20 watt, and it comes with probably more diaphragms and parts than you'll actually use. This kit fits several different carburetor models, but go ahead and get it opened up here, and we'll lay all the parts out. It's very important that your workbench be clean when we do this. Several different ones like that one. Let's see, we won't use that one, and we won't use this one. We won't use that, and I don't believe we'll use that one. So what we got left is the two styles of fuel pumps. Whichever style you took out is the style that you want to use. The one that I took out was a plastic, kind of a fiber disc type. In that case, you can use either one of these. This one's made out of fiberglass, and this was made out of rubber. I've had good luck using both different ones. They're the same except the material, what they're made out of. If you have any ideas or have any reason to use one or the other, like I said, they're interchangeable. But if your carburetor originally came with one or the other, I would go ahead and use it. But like I said, this carburetor came with cellophane plastic style, almost see-through like this one here, and they just get hard and brittle. But you can use either one if you want to. It's not real super important, but there's some check valves in these carburetors. Don't be probing with a piece of wire down in these holes in this carburetor. You'll ruin that check valve. I'd replace the screen, the fuel filter inlet screen, and the needle and the needle lever. Other than that, we'll just go ahead and go back together with it. If you want to spray this carburetor out, I don't recommend using like B12 or stuff like that, because it will just absolutely wreak havoc on the rubber parts on this carburetor. I like to use brake parts cleaner. Seems to work really well on cleaning carburetors as well. But I haven't had any bad luck. Matter of fact, Steel and Echo both recommend using brake parts cleaner because it doesn't degrade the rubber parts inside some of these carburetors. First step you want to do is go ahead and install your metering diaphragm. The gasket always goes first, and then your metering diaphragm. The little tit on the diaphragm always goes down. Go ahead and replace the metering diaphragm cover and install the 4 screws that you took out previously. Go ahead and install the fuel pump diaphragm first. I'm going to go ahead and use the rubber gasket, and then the diaphragm gasket. Kind of get all the holes just kind of lined up, and what you want to do is kind of rotate this throttle back so it's not getting in the way as you put the cover back on. Oopsie daisy. Sometimes it don't hurt to spray a little WD-40 on these gaskets before you put them on there. It helps them stick to the carburetor as you're trying to get them on there. Like that, and just let the throttle snap shut and install the screw. And before I put this carburetor back onto the saw or the engine, I like to do a little pressure test. I like to use a little thumb pump, and what I like to do is pressure this carburetor up on the fuel pump side to about 7 psi. And let it sit there and hold. What you're doing, you're actually testing the needle in the seat, the integrity of the needle in the seat, and the gaskets of the carburetor. Because watch, if the gaskets are not sealing, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm going to loosen the diaphragm or the fuel pump gasket. The pressure will drop. Leaking gaskets will cause a carburetor to run bad as well. But that carburetor is in good shape, and so let's go ahead and install it back onto the saw, and we'll get the saw put back together, get this thing cranked up, and see how it turns out. Slide the carburetor back over the carburetor mounting studs, and also hook up your throttle cable while you're there. Check for the operation of it. Good. Let's go ahead and hook up the fuel line to the fuel pump side. Good to go there. Let's go ahead and hook up the other fuel line, but in this case I'm going to replace one of them with a piece of fuel line from Echo, or Steel rather. On second thought, you know what, I don't like the way that fits that carburetor. I'm going to go to a little bit smaller line. Let's try some of this Tygo thing. Yeah, that's a little better. Just kind of weasel it down in there and just kind of guesstimate. You can, like I say, I always cut my fuel lines a little bit longer than I need. That way you got plenty. and there's plenty of room down in here to stuff some back if you need to. Go ahead and prime up the carburetor with your primer bulb. If the chainsaw doesn't have one, that's fine. There we go. Just make sure it's flowing through the carburetor like it's supposed to. Go ahead and hook up the choke rod to the choke lever. Like that. I know if you can't see that, I apologize. I'm trying to use a tripod, and sometimes it doesn't get the shot that I need. Go ahead and install the little Carter clip, or whatever you want to call it, right there. Set the ignition block back down into the slots. Sometimes you just need 3 fingers, 3 hands. There we go. Get down in there. Okay, got that done. Got the throttle cable hooked up. Got the choke hooked up. And it seems to be working fine. Okay, next step is to reinstall the air filter base. Go ahead and install your nuts. Go ahead and cinch those down. You don't have to just bare tight these, just get them snug. The bolts or the nuts they're serrated on the back side, so they bite into the plastic as you tighten them down. I like to use my wrench with my fingers like this, so you can't really over tighten something. But that right there is plenty tight. You don't have to tighten it much more than that. So it's good to go there. Let's go ahead and install the stuffing block, or the limiter cap block that goes on the carburetor. And then we'll install the starter. Go ahead and slap on your starter, and we're going to start installing the handle back. Just kind of get it slid over everything where it needs to be. Just start running your screws back in. One there, one in the back here by the handle. And one on the side. Basically, this is just putting it together like you took it apart. This one can be a little bit of a pain sometimes because everything don't want to line up just perfectly. You may have to scoot the screw back a little bit because it's being held in by that big buffer spring. But you'll get the idea. go ahead and blow out your air filter. This one looks pretty good. A lot of times they'll just be completely jam-packed with stuff. These HOMELITE filters they've got little feet that they sit down inside the corresponding slots down in the base, and they can be cantankerous sometimes. But they will go just like that. One thing I like about these saws is all the fasteners are the same, pretty much to an extent. Go ahead and install your new spark plug. Get it tightened down to 3/4 inch or 19 millimeter. Just snug it in about 1/4 of a turn. That's all you need to do. Well, I've got it all back together, and so let's go ahead and give it a start and see how it does. Well, I've got just a little bit of fine tuning on the carburetor, but that's about it. If you have any questions on how to tune up a chainsaw, let me know. More Medic 1. Y'all have a good day.